Everyone dreamed of owning a Ferrari. From the age of 12, the poster on the wall, the desktop wallpaper you never showed anyone. But here's what you never thought about. What if you owned not the car, but the company that makes them? Tuesday, you're at work, you're drinking coffee, the mail comes, car loan, utility bill, a parking fine you distinctly remember paying, but apparently didn't, and a heavy cream envelope with a wax seal on it and a small black horse. From Marinello, addressed to you. Extremely polite. Our records indicate that you hold 10% of Ferrari. A shareholder vote will take place in 7 days. Your vote will be counted. Between an unpaid parking fine and a hot water bill, a letter telling you that you own a company worth $66 billion. And the first question you ask is the obvious one. How many cars did we sell? Day 1, the plane. They send a plane. Not a ticket, a plane. Nobody tells you where to put your backpack, so you hold it on your lap for the first 40 minutes like a man being deported. Somebody offers you ice, 3 kinds of ice. You did not previously know that ice came in kinds. Somewhere over the Atlantic, you give up pretending and open the annual report. Revenue last year, 7.1 billion euros, up 7%. Operating profit, 2.1 billion. Net profit, 1.6. Fine, big numbers. Now go look at what the market thinks the whole thing is worth. About $66 billion. That's roughly what General Motors is worth. General Motors sells around 6 million cars a year. You sell 13,000. 400 times fewer cars, same price on the company, 400 to 1. Keep it in your pocket. We're coming back for it. Day 2, the road. You land. They don't send a taxi. They send a 12-cylinder stallion. Then the engine starts. It's not a noise so much as a decision. 12 cylinders arriving at an agreement. And this is where you have to actually pay attention, right here, in this ridiculous sun through the trees moment. Because the thing you're feeling is not a pleasant side effect of the product. It's the product. The average Ferrari sells for over 520,000 euros. Now here's the number. If you take one thing out of this entire video, take this one. Toyota makes about $2,500 of operating profit on a car. Ferrari makes about 155,000 euros on a car. Toyota has to sell 65 cars to earn what you earn on one. 65 to 1. Which is the moment you stop comparing yourself to Volkswagen and start comparing yourself to Hermes, because that's your actual weight class. You are not in the business of moving metal. You're in the business of selling something people want and are not allowed to have, which is where this gets annoying. Day 3, the factory. Marinello is a town, not a campus, not a headquarters, a town. 20,000 people. Between 1 and 3, everything closes. Not most things, everything. You own 10% of Ferrari and you cannot buy a phone charger because it's lunch. You'd expected the factory to be loud. It isn't. There are plants in the building, live ones. There's daylight. Somebody is finishing a seam by hand, slowly, with the air of a person who has never once in his life been told to hurry up. And you start doing arithmetic because you're a shareholder now, and apparently this is what happens to your brain. You could double this. The demand is there. Second plant, 30,000 cars, double the revenue. You say it out loud. And they explain very kindly in the tone you'd use to explain gravity to a child that yes, they could, and they won't. The order book is full through the end of 2027. You can't just walk in and buy the special car. First, you buy ordinary Ferraris for years. You show up to things. And you are, I want to be precise here, assessed. There is a system inside this company that scores clients on every interaction they have ever had with the brand, and it decides who gets offered what. This is the only business on earth where telling a paying customer no is a growth strategy instead of a mistake. Every other company on this planet is trying to sell more. You are running the most disciplined refusal operation in industrial history. The scarcity isn't a side effect of the business, it's the whole business. The waiting list is the asset. Sell one more car than you should, and you haven't made an extra €500,000. You've made every car very slightly easier to get, which makes all of them worth a little less. You are being paid, quite literally, not to sell things. Day 4. The team that ate the company. Across the road from the factory, there's another building, and that building is the reason any of this exists. Enzo Ferrari didn't build road cars because he wanted to build road cars. He built road cars to pay for the race team. Customers were a financing mechanism. For decades, and not privately, he treated the buyer as an inconvenience, a man who wanted the wrong things in the wrong color for the wrong reasons. The side project grew. It ate the main business and turned into the brand. Now sit down, because what follows is the most enjoyable arithmetic in this video. You think Formula One is where your company pours money. Beautiful shop window, expensive toy, cost line. Let's count. Costs. The spending cap for 2026 is $215 million. There's a separate cap for engines, 190, and driver salaries, read this bit twice, are not inside the cap at all. Now the income. Formula One as a sport makes around $3.9 billion a year. Roughly 45% of that, about $1.4 billion, gets handed back to the teams. And here's how it gets handed back. 5% of the entire prize fund, about $63 million, goes to Ferrari as its own line, because Ferrari is the only team that has been in the championship every single season since 1950, without missing one. Not for winning, not for a podium, for continuing to exist. Then there's prize money for where you finished, and prize money for how you've done over the last decade. Add it all up, and last season, Ferrari took roughly $278 million out of that fund, more than anyone in the paddock. On top of that, the title sponsor pays somewhere near $100 million a year. Then there are a couple of dozen other sponsors. Then you sell engines to rival teams. Add it up. The race team's income covers the race team's costs, which means the most recognizable marketing instrument in the history of the car industry, a red car that several 100 million people watch on 24 weekends a year, costs this company approximately nothing. Formula One is not a sport your company happens to be in. It's a marketing department that pays its own salary. The race team isn't a cost line. It's the machine that manufactures the myth. The cars are just the myth with wheels on. Day 5. The shield. So what did you actually inherit? Not a factory, not steel, a shield with a horse on it. Now let's price the horse on its own, with no car attached to it. There's a line in the accounts: sponsorship, commercial, and brand. Last year, it went over 800 million euros, up 22%, which means it's growing faster than the cars are. What's in it? Racing, licensing, the stores, the merchandise, museums in Modena and Maranello, the restaurant, and theme parks in Abu Dhabi and in Spain. And notice that Ferrari didn't build those and doesn't run them. Ferrari lets somebody put the horse on them and gets paid. You are being paid for the continued existence of a logo. 800 million euros, over 11% of everything you make, and not one engine was involved. The company doesn't break down how much of that line is racing and how much of it is baseball caps. That isn't an oversight. If anyone knew the precise figure for money we make from keychains, the conversation about Ferrari would become a slightly different conversation. Which produces the single most dangerous temptation available to you as a shareholder? You could print money right now. Put the horse on other things. Put it on everything. Revenue goes vertical. And then the horse is worth nothing because the entire value of that shield is that it isn't on everything. You're a shareholder in a company whose main asset is destroyed by using it. Sit with that one. Day 6. So what about the money? Fine. What about you personally? Your stake is worth about $7 billion. On paper, you can't sell it. Well, you can once, and then you're not a Ferrari shareholder. You're a man with money, and there are a lot of those. But there are dividends. The company pays out around 40% of net profit. Net profit was $1.6 billion. Your slice is a little over 10%, which is roughly 70 million euros a year to you for existing. Call it 200,000 euros a day, including weekends, including that Tuesday with the bad coffee on the third floor. And here's what nobody tells you. Spending 70 million euros a year is a job, a real one with long hours. A boat is not a purchase, it's a crew, a berth, an insurance policy, and a man who calls you about the boat. A house in Tuscany is not a house. It's a renovation that never finishes because the building is listed, and now the windows can only be replaced with windows that nobody makes anymore. So you try just living in Maranello, quietly, like a person. You buy yourself a Ferrari, a normal one. You drive it to the bakery anyway, every day. And that feeling, that exact feeling, is the thing people spend years queuing for. It's why they buy cars they don't want in order to earn the right to buy a car they do. Congratulations, you've become your own customer. Now you understand the business from the inside. A room in Maranello, long table, the item on the agenda, the one from the letter, the product range, which in plain language means, are we building an electric Ferrari? The arguments in favor are all sitting there on the table, and they're boring, and they're correct. Regulation, the century we live in, everyone else is already there. A company that can't do the new technology becomes a museum in 20 years, and you already own 2 museums, and they make less money than the race team. The argument against never gets said out loud, because out loud, it sounds ridiculous. Out loud, it sounds like, but the noise. You raise your hand, you vote yes, and you walk out of that room with a distinct, warm, entirely unearned glow of a man who has just dragged a company into the modern era. Hold on to that feeling. It lasts until Rome. The 25th of May, the first fully electric Ferrari, the Luce, and the engine noise, the thing that's half the product, comes out of the speakers because there isn't an engine. Then the internet. A former chairman goes on television and suggests taking the horse off the car altogether. The next day, the stock falls 8%. Over the year, nearly 30%. One of the hands that went up in that room was yours. But here's the thing. The business didn't collapse. Revenue up. Order book full. Nobody stopped buying. What fell wasn't the money. What fell was the belief. Faith is the only asset on earth that can lose 30% of its value while the factory is running perfectly. 2 doors. Tuesday. You're back at your desk, and in front of you, 2 doors. Door 1. Stay with the engine. Your product is a sound. A sound can't be downloaded, simulated, or improved. Every rival that went electric got faster and less interesting, and you are not in the speed business. You're in the goosebumps business. But the world only moves one way, and so do regulators. And a company whose entire moat is a noise that's being legislated out of existence is a company holding a very beautiful, very loud, very rapidly depreciating asset. Door 2. Go electric. You keep the engineering crown. You make it to the end of the century. But then answer the question the Luce couldn't answer. What exactly are you selling when half of what you were selling came out of the exhaust pipe? A very fast, very quiet, very expensive object competing against 1,000 other very fast, very quiet, very expensive objects, and no queue outside to protect you. I know which way you voted. You were there. Your hand went up. What if you got a second go? Tell me in the comments, door 1 or door 2, the sound or the current. What would you actually pick if the horse were yours? Meanwhile, in Maranello, somebody is finishing a seam by hand, and it's 1 o'clock, so everything's shut until 3.